How's it going, guys? Welcome to the first little Blender tutorial. I'm going to see how this does on YouTube. I know you guys are interested to pull in the Discord. If you guys do not know what my Discord is, go check it out and the link in the description. But before we start, um, again, this is a Blender video. We're not going to do anything with ZModeler. This is just going to be going over like the basics because Blender is a whole different ballpark from ZModeler as far as movements and things you can do in it. But once you get the hang of it, and you can model, you can do basically anything you want. I found that out myself. Been modeling a bunch of stuff. I don't need to ask people to do anything. I don't need parts off of anyone. I can make them all myself now. So once you get this skill, the possibilities are literally endless. And once you add Blender modeling with some Photoshop skills, you truly are totally independent. You don't need anyone for anything. Before we get started, I preferably would recommend y'all use Blender 3.6. That is what I use. I refuse to update to the latest version just because they've changed a lot of things. I don't know if they've reverted back in the newer updates, but I knew when they went to 4.0 from 3.6, a lot of things got removed that were pretty crucial to what I use it for. So you can go to Blender. It's not going to be on Steam. Steam is only going to let you download the latest version of Blender. So if you want to use 3.6 like what I'm doing, just go to blender.org, the Blender website, and just go to releases, and you can scroll down and you'll find 3.6 LTS. This is what you're going to want to use. Again, currently the 4.5 is out. Again, if you want to use the latest Blender, be my guest, but some of the shortcuts and also the modifiers we're going to be using in this video are not going to be the same. Luckily, we're not modeling anything extreme. We're just going to be going over movements and modifiers and kind of what all that stuff does and just explaining Blender as a whole. Other than that, let's get right into the video. Alright guys, so we are in Blender, and you're always going to start Blender with a cube in your scene. And if you move your mouse, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to rotate any views. You're kind of just stuck here if you don't know what you're doing. So for movements, if you press down, like literally press down on this middle mouse wheel. So if you got a crappy mouse, you probably are going to want to get a new one, especially if it's like a Dell mouse. You want something that has a good press down. Like you're not scrolling this, you are literally pressing down on the scroll wheel as like a button, and then you can actually drag your mouse and it will allow you to rotate around like this. And then obviously you could scroll in and out to get closer to the object. Unlike ZModeler, you can actually get like really up and close to the object and actually see exactly what you're doing without the object disappearing, which is extremely nice. But still, you can't like move your camera. You're kind of just stuck at this like locked location. If we combine shift, so if we press left shift and middle mouse button down, we can drag. We cannot rotate our view, but when you combine the moving of this and then letting go of shift and then pressing down your middle mouse wheel, we can actually rotate. So if we just left shift, middle mouse button down, we can drag left and right or up and down, and then we can press the middle mouse scroll wheel down again and we can rotate. So once you combine those and scrolling and stuff, you can really move around the scene completely by yourself. It takes a while to get the hang of it, but once you do, you can just fly around the scene, as you guys can see, like no one's business. Now I've been doing this for 5 years, so obviously I kind of can just fly around. And once you get used to it, the pinky, I use my pinky finger, I press shift and just move around like that. Another very useful thing for viewpoints in Blender is going to be what is called like locking on. So we're not going to get super deep into it, but there's things called normals in Blender. And basically what normals are is in game, there's obviously lighting. So based off a game's lighting, we can tell the object, or we can tell the game through our topography of our object how the sun or the light should hit our object. So if we have like a crease, we can tell the game that this crease exists right there, and we want the light to not just like blend it. We want it to be like hitting it directly where you can see there's like a sharp line there. And normals are very hard to do when you first start off, and it's very important to understand that if you do not do flat faces or 90-degree angles dead on and they're all wonky, they're not going to work properly. It's also important to use this next view I'm going to show you when you're moving objects, just because, let me show y'all real fast. So if we press tab, so we can left click on our object and then press tab, you'll see we have what is called our like polygon mode or our vert mode. And if we just left click on our mouse and drag and select, so I'm just pressing left click and dragging my mouse, we'll get this box right here. This is our selection box. If we look, we can see our little black dots on each corner. If we select them, you'll see it will be highlighted. And if we select the other one by holding shift and then dragging left click, so left shift, left mouse button, drag, we can select all three. And we can also press control, and then while holding control, left shift and drag, we can deselect those polys. So that's how you select and deselect polygons. We can also go into our line mode, which is up here at the top left. So we have vert mode, you see it change. Line mode, which will select like an actual line of the object, you see that? And then this is our face mode, so we can actually select like a whole face, as you guys can see, like so. But we're going to focus on our vert mode. So we have these two polys selected. You can see I have two down here selected, so let's just hold control and left shift and just deselect that. And now you have the two selected. Make sure in Blender you look completely around and see if there's anything that is selected, because sometimes with Blender you can select something you didn't mean to select, and then you'll start moving things and then it will all be screwed up, which you obviously don't want to do. But let's say we just want to move this just vertically up. So what you would do is you would press G, which allows us to move it, see, like that. So that's what G does. G allows us to move. Now let's say we just want to move this up, so we'll do G and then we'll move it up. But you can see it's kind of just all over the place, and this is what I mean by normals. So this is not a flat face anymore, which is not going to be good. This is not going to work. It's not going to look right. So what you would actually do is you would press G and then Z, and you can see this blue line appear on our screen. And once we just drag our mouse up and down, it's locked onto the Z plane. And if we just let go, we can see that it is perfectly straight, as you guys can see. Now, a better way to do this, in my opinion, would be to hold left Alt and then hold down our middle scroll wheel at the same time. And then if we drag our mouse while holding left Alt and the middle scroll wheel down, we can drag like this, and you'll see that it actually locks us into a viewpoint. And we can just keep doing that, holding left Alt and then the middle mouse button down and just dragging, and we can lock into any viewpoint. But if we lock, let's say, on the left side of the object, we can press G and we can move it any way we want. Now we can move it over here like this. But if we come out of that view just by pressing the little scroll wheel, we can see we're still straight on the object. So again, we lock back in our view. We can move it any way we want without having to use like just an example would be like G, Z, up. So that's our Z axis. We press G and then Y, or I'm sorry, G and then X, and move it like that. Instead, we can just press G and just move it around without having to worry about the sides being warped. But that's just a cool trick. That is basically all the movements and views you can use in Blender. The left Alt and middle scroll wheel is extremely important because, like I said, allowing the ability to just move everything without having to worry about having to use axes makes everything a lot smoother, especially if you're trying to do something like very unique and it's not just like a 90-degree angle. But back to movements, if we just press G and then Z, you can see that moves it up and down. If we press G and then X, that moves it across horizontally like this. If we press G and then Y, it's going to move it parallel, or I guess that's more horizontal, though, with parallel. We press Y, move it this way, like so. But you can also just press G, X, and then press Y, or I'm sorry, G, and then X, I was wrong, but you get the point. So you can move it like that. And the same thing applies for line mode. So if we just press any side of the square we want to choose, we could press this one right here. We can press G and then Z like that. Now I will say this, depending on which view you're in, it will kind of change a little bit. Kind of important. But let's say we don't want to exactly move this up like this, and instead we want to make this like a wall right here. So let's say we want to make like a cube with like a hole in it, right? What we can do is we can actually go to our face mode, right? We can click our face. We can press E. Now, when you press E, what we're doing is we're extruding the object. So we're going to add a second layer of polys and make the object longer. Technically, obviously, we could grab all corners and just move it up and make it taller. But for this, we're just going to do this. So press E. And when you press E, it's automatically going to go on the Z axis because this is on the top of the square. If we went on the other side, like over here, it's going to go this way, as you can see. So it kind of is predicting your movement. Like, you're not going to extrude this and go, you know, over here. That's not going to make any sense because, look, it ruins the shape of your object, which Blender knows that will ruin your normals. So it's kind of just trying to help you. So we press E, it's going to extrude. Now, let's say we just didn't want it to do what it's trying to do. Let's just press E, and we can kind of click and then press G, and we can move it wherever we want. But let's say we wanted to go and press E, and then we wanted to not go up and down. We wanted to go this way. We can press X, and we could change the axis of movement and extrude it this way like that. Now, obviously, you would never do that, but that's an example. But let's keep going. We press E. We follow the smart feature. And then what we can do now, we can press, let's lock into our top view, because watch, if we press E, right, and then we extrude this, it's kind of going to warp. It's kind of hard to tell. You really can't tell, but this is kind of warping the more we go instead of being flat. But if we go ahead and use our left alt and middle mouse button down and lock in our top view, we can actually press E and extrude this like this. And you can see it's a lot flatter, as you can see. You can see the line right there. Now, if we press E, we're still on our Z. Let's say you don't want Z, you press Z, it's gone. Press Z again, that line comes back, we're going back on that axis again. We can press E and then Z and then move this down. And as you can see, we have made like a cauldron from Minecraft, basically. That's basically what this is, as you can see. But you can also tell at the same time, this kind of looks weird. And like I said, I'm not gonna cover normals in this video. I'm just going over like the basics of extruding and moving and views and stuff like that. Because, like I said, normals needs its whole separate video. But yeah. But that's how you would make something like this. You can keep going. Now, what you might run into, maybe not. I lied. But that's how you would extrude it. If we wanted to, for example, make this like like a wing, I don't know, like it kind of goes out on the sides. If we go into our line mode like this, we can select this side, hold shift and select this side. So you can see the orange right there and there. If we wanted to extrude it out like this at the same time, what we can do is press E for extrude, and then we're going to press S to scale. And then if we press X, I'm sorry, not X, but Y, you see the line going across the screen, and we just drag our mouse, you'll see this will extrude outwards. So what we did is we pressed extrude for E. We didn't do anything. Then we pressed S, which is for scaling, and then we pressed which axis we wanted to scale on, and then we actually dragged our mouse, and it allowed us to scale. You don't have to always, specify which axis you want to scale on, but if we just pressed S right here, you can see it kind of just does that instead of extruding out just on the x-axis. You can also press A and then press S, and you can scale your whole object up like that. So A will select everything, and then again S will extrude or scale it up. So that's how you scale and move things around. Pressing G and moving it around, all very important, the basic, super basic Blender things. Let's say we just wanted to again just extrude this single poly up here, right? If we press E and then Z, we can just extrude this face like this. Now, what's important to understand with this, and what I'm going to tell you guys, you should always, as soon as you get into Blender, immediately toggle on. Obviously, I did not immediately do it because I want to show you. So we can see that our object is fully, it's fully visible, right? Now, if I'm sure a lot of y'all are coming from my work on GTA 5, which uses ZModeler, but even outside of ZModeler, let's say we extracted this to a game or something that we're making a Roblox game or something like that. More than likely, I know at least with ZModeler and GTA 5 stuff, I'm pretty sure it's universal, but we can see that this is all like a physical object, or not, it's an object. However, because we only extruded this one side up like this, more than likely, when I go and toggle on this setting, this actually is invisible. So if we actually went and put this in ZModeler, for example, or any other software, we'll see this entire object, and then if we go on this backside, this is going to be literally invisible. So if we go up here, this little drop down, click it, and we turn on back face calling, you can see that I was wrong, but you can see that on this side, it is literally invisible. So what this is showing us is that if we took this out of Blender and put it in a different software, this right here would literally be invisible. Now, once we rotated our camera around in game onto this side, we would see it, which obviously is not what we want. We don't want that. We would much rather have this side visible, and then we'd probably close this in. Realistically, you obviously would extrude this entire thing using face and, extruding this entire face up. We can see we have the whole thing. But let's say we wanted to, for some reason we just wanted this to be a single poly and we want to rotate this around. All you would do is click on it and then click Alt-N and then flip. And that's how you fix that. Now, sometimes you might make a whole object, forget to turn on back face calling, and there's a bunch of things that's flipped. The whole object is flipped. Well, you don't have to go in there and click around and click all the polys. What you can instead do is press Alt-N and then recalculate outside, and it will flip it. Obviously, that didn't work, which is kind of hilarious. But you click recalculate outside or Shift-N. But if Shift-N does not work, you can also just, like I said, manually click the poly and just flip it like that. Super easy. The last thing I want to cover in this video is some different things in the top right. So like I said, with Blender, if we lock our view, right, if we select these two polys on this side and we start moving it around, you can see that it did not select these two on this side. So on ZModeler, if you're selecting polygons, or I'm sure other softwares, it's going to select those two and these two. It's just going to go right through the object. On Blender, on the other hand, it is not. So you got to be very weary that when you're moving, you think you're moving this whole section right here, you're actually only moving it on one side. So let's say I'm like, oh, I'm moving it up on the Z axis by pressing G and then Z. And I go on this side and I'm like, oh, what the hell? That's not good. So how you would correctly, you're not going to go and select these and then come over here and hold Shift and select these. No. You don't need to do that. What you're going to do instead is you're going to come up here to this viewport shading, and you're going to click this. And it's basically going to give you like a wireframe of your object. So I can literally see right through this. As you can see, I can see everything. And because you can see everything, if we go ahead and deselect this, you can see I was able to deselect all four. I was able to select all four like that. So that's how you would see through an object and select everything versus, poop-putting around and, doing this and that. That's not the correct way. Use viewport shading. Super important, super easy to use. And the other one on here would be a matte cap finish, which kind of gives you a better idea of what the normals look like. My preferable one would be, we click on it, or I'm sorry. This is actually the texture. I'm sorry. that is where you would texture this in Blender. Again, I don't really texture in Blender, so I don't use this much, but you can texture in Blender and you can apply textures over here somewhere. I think in here you can add a material and apply a texture to this, and once you export it, the texture will already be UV mapped onto the object. You guys probably have no idea what the hell I'm talking about UV maps, but that's for texturing objects. We will get to that in a later video. The last thing I want to show you guys is if we go back into our viewport shading and we hit on this button right here and then go to wireframe. I'm sorry. Yeah. You can kind of see it's similar. What I like to use this feature for is actually just seeing, like, you know, not seeing through it completely like this, but it allows us to basically kind of, it's kind of the same thing, but it gives you a better look at it. And if you go up here and you toggle off X-ray and you just leave on viewport shading, the second one up here, you can actually see, you can like see this a lot better inside here when you're doing stuff than if it was just solid white, for example, like this. Now this is kind of, like I said, this is kind of a bad example. I could possibly show you a better example. If we go in here and press this face and then press G and then Z and move this back up like this and just make it very faint, you can see when we look at this dead on, it's almost impossible to see where our lines are. Now if we go back and we turn on just this mode, you can kind of see how it's a lot easier to see. Even though, see, that's that. That's that. So you can see it's a lot easier to see what we're doing. Other than that, this is the first Blender video. In the next one, we're going to cover more detailed stuff, more skills you guys can use to, like, beveling stuff and making stuff round and making shapes and a whole bunch of other stuff. And yeah, but I would recommend just playing around with this cube and trying all the skills I just showed you. Get used to moving around in Blender and stuff like that. And yeah, I will catch you guys in the next Blender video if this one does well. If not, this might become a paid series on the Patreon. It kind of already is, but there's not many Blender videos on there. Other than that, guys, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.